In the depths of space, amidst the stars that bind us all, there are worlds we may never know, civilizations whose names we'll never hear. But sometimes, fate decides that one human will cross the galaxy, not as a conqueror, but as a guest. Stranded on Zalani Prime, a planet where peace is sacred and weapons are a forgotten concept, engineer Marcus Rivera found himself at the mercy of strangers. But those strangers were not just rescuers. They were the Zalani. They saved him when death knocked on his door. Now, years later, the time has come for Marcus to repay their kindness. And in a universe that knows no mercy, a debt once paid may change the very course of history. Because when the Korthak Empire threatens the Zalani with annihilation, Earth will do more than answer the call. It will become their shield. The unexpected guest. Marcus Rivera pressed his palm against the cracked viewport of his cargo hauler, watching the unknown planet grow larger through the spiderweb of fractures in the reinforced glass. The ship's warning systems had given up screaming about hull breaches and engine failures hours ago, leaving only the steady hiss of escaping atmosphere and the occasional groan of stressed metal. At 34, Marcus had piloted dozens of supply runs between Earth and Mars, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The quantum drive had failed spectacularly during what should have been a routine jump to the Martian colonies. One moment he was reviewing cargo manifests for mining equipment and hydroponic supplies, and the next, his ship was tumbling through unknown space with every system cascading into failure. The emergency beacon was broadcasting, but Marcus knew the chances of rescue were slim. He was far beyond the established shipping lanes, in a region of space that human maps marked simply as unexplored. The planet below appeared peaceful enough. Swirling clouds of pale blue and white covered most of its surface, with patches of green and brown that suggested land masses and possibly vegetation. The atmosphere readings from his failing sensors indicated it might be breathable, though Marcus couldn't be certain with half his equipment offline. As the ship entered the upper atmosphere, he felt the familiar tug of gravity taking hold, pulling him toward whatever fate awaited on the surface. The landing was less of a controlled descent and more of a barely controlled crash. Marcus managed to fire the emergency retro rockets at the last second, slowing his descent just enough to avoid complete annihilation. The ship struck the ground with tremendous force, bouncing twice before sliding to a stop in what appeared to be a meadow of unusual crystalline grass that chimed softly in the wind. Steam rose from the ship's hull as superheated metal met the alien atmosphere, and Marcus found himself unconscious as smoke filled the cockpit. When he woke, Marcus was no longer in his ship. Soft light filtered through what appeared to be translucent walls, and he lay on something that felt like a bed, but seemed to pulse gently with its own rhythm. His body ached from the crash, but as he tried to sit up, he realized that many of his injuries had been treated. Bandages made of an unknown material covered his arms and torso, and the sharp pain in his ribs had been reduced to a dull throb. A sound near the entrance made him turn, and Marcus got his first look at his rescuers. The being that entered stood nearly 7 feet tall, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Its face was humanoid but refined, with large eyes that held depths of wisdom and compassion. The being wore robes that appeared to be woven from the same crystalline material as the grass outside, and it moved with a grace that suggested complete harmony with its surroundings. The being spoke in a voice like distant wind chimes, and though Marcus couldn't understand the words, somehow their meaning became clear in his mind. The universal translator in his suit had been damaged in the crash, but there was something else at work here. Some form of direct communication that bypassed language entirely. "Welcome, traveler from the distant stars," the being said, its mental voice warm and soothing. "I am Elder Thyra of the Zalani people. You were gravely injured when we found you, but our healers have tended to your wounds. You are safe now." Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was dry and his voice came out as little more than a croak. "My ship. I crashed." "Yes, we know," Elder Thyra replied gently. "Your vessel rests in the Crystal Meadows, where our people first discovered you. The damage is considerable, but you are alive, and that is what matters. Rest now, and when you are stronger, we will speak more. Over the following days, Marcus gradually recovered his strength while learning about his remarkable rescuers. The Zilani were an ancient people who had achieved a level of harmony with their planet that bordered on the mystical. Their cities were grown rather than built, with living structures that responded to their inhabitants' needs. Their technology was based on crystalline formations that could store and channel energy in ways that human science could barely comprehend. A young Zilani healer named Kira visited Marcus daily, bringing him strange but nourishing foods and teaching him basic words in their language. She was perhaps the equivalent of 20 human years, with skin that glowed softly in the dim light of the healing chamber and eyes that sparkled with curiosity about the strange being they had rescued. "Your people must be very different from us," Kira said one afternoon as she checked his healing wounds. "Your body is dense and compact, built for strength rather than harmony. And your mind, it moves so quickly, always planning and calculating. We Zilani think in seasons and cycles, but humans seem to think in moments and heartbeats." Marcus smiled at her observation. "We've had to be quick and adaptable. Our homeworld isn't as kind as yours appears to be. We've had to fight for everything we've achieved." This comment seemed to trouble Kira, and she was quiet for a long moment. "Fighting," she said finally. "This is something we know little about. The Zilani have not known war for over 1,000 years. We believe that all life is connected, that violence against another being is violence against ourselves." As Marcus continued to recover, he learned more about Zilani society and their remarkable achievements. They had developed faster-than-light travel centuries before humans, but instead of expanding aggressively across the galaxy, they had chosen to remain on their homeworld, perfecting their understanding of life and consciousness. Their cities were marvels of biotechnology, with buildings that lived and breathed, transportation systems that flowed like rivers of light, and energy sources that drew power from the planet's own life force. But Marcus also sensed something troubling beneath the surface of this paradise. The Zilani spoke in hushed tones about visitors from the stars, aggressive beings who had begun making demands for tribute and submission. When Marcus pressed for details, Elder Thyra finally revealed the truth that had been weighing on their people. "The Korthak Empire has found us," she said, her mental voice heavy with sadness. "They are conquerors from the galactic rim, beings who see only resources to be exploited and worlds to be claimed. They have given us 1 year to submit to their rule or face invasion." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What will you do?" "We will do what we have always done," Elder Thyra replied. "We will seek harmony, even in the face of destruction. Violence begets violence, and we cannot betray our fundamental nature, even to preserve our lives." The idea of these peaceful, generous beings facing extinction because of their unwillingness to fight filled Marcus with a rage he had rarely experienced. These people had saved his life, nursed him back to health, and asked for nothing in return. They represented everything that was good about intelligent life in the universe, and the thought of them being destroyed by brutal conquerors was unbearable. "There has to be another way," Marcus said urgently. "What about allies? Other species who might help?" Elder Thyra's expression grew even more sorrowful. "The Korthak are feared throughout this region of space. Most species either submit to their rule or flee when their fleets appear. We have sent messages to those we once called friends, but none have responded. We face this darkness alone." As Marcus's physical strength returned, he spent more time exploring the Zilani city. The beauty of their civilization was breathtaking, but he also began to understand the magnitude of what was at stake. The Zilani had created something unique in the galaxy, a society based on wisdom, compassion, and the nurturing of life in all its forms. Their libraries contained knowledge accumulated over millennia, their gardens held species from dozens of worlds, and their people embodied an ideal of peaceful coexistence that humanity could learn from. The crystalline structures that formed the backbone of their technology fascinated Marcus. As an engineer, he could appreciate the elegance of their solutions, even if he couldn't fully understand the principles behind them. The crystals seemed to respond to consciousness itself, growing and adapting based on the needs and thoughts of their users. It was technology that bordered on magic from a human perspective. One evening, as Marcus stood in the healing chamber where he had first awakened, Elder Thyra approached him with news that changed everything. "Your ship has been repaired," she said. "Our crystal singers have mended the damage and restored your vessel to functionality. You are free to return to your people whenever you choose." Marcus felt his heart sink. The thought of leaving this place, these people, filled him with unexpected sorrow. But he also knew that he had responsibilities elsewhere, and that his disappearance would have caused concern among his colleagues and friends. "I don't know how to thank you," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life, healed my wounds, and showed me wonders I never imagined possible. I'll never forget what you've done for me." Elder Thyra's eyes seemed to shimmer with unshed tears. "Your gratitude is gift enough, Marcus Rivera of Earth. But I ask one thing of you. Remember us. Remember what we have built here. And perhaps, if the darkness comes, remember that we tried to live in the light." As Marcus prepared to leave Zilani Prime, he made a promise that would resonate through the years to come. Standing in the crystal meadows where his ship had first crashed, surrounded by the gentle beings who had saved him, he spoke words that would prove prophetic. "I will remember," he said solemnly. "And if the day comes when you need help, I will find a way to repay the debt I owe you. That's a promise." The journey back to human space took several weeks, but Marcus spent every moment of the trip thinking about the Zilani and their impending crisis. He documented everything he had learned about their society, their technology, and their situation. By the time he reached Earth, he had made a decision that would change the course of interstellar history. The Zilani had saved one human life without thought of reward or recognition. They had shown him kindness, wisdom, and the true meaning of civilization. Now they faced destruction, and Marcus Rivera was determined to ensure that humanity would not forget the debt of gratitude they owed to the gentle beings of Zilani Prime. As his ship entered Earth's orbital traffic control system, Marcus was already planning his next move. He would report to the colonial administration, but more importantly, he would make sure that the right people heard about the Zilani and their plight. Humanity had a reputation for being scrappy fighters and unlikely heroes, but this would be their greatest test yet. The seeds of an interstellar alliance had been planted in the crystal meadows of an alien world, watered by the tears of gratitude from a rescued human, and they would soon grow into something that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to honor one's debts. The debt remembered. 3 years had passed since Marcus Rivera's return to Earth, and the memory of his time among the Zilani had never faded. He had risen through the ranks of the Colonial Engineering Corps, earning recognition for his innovative solutions to the challenges of interstellar infrastructure. His designs for improved life support systems and emergency protocols had been adopted throughout human space, saving countless lives during the dangerous early years of expansion beyond the solar system. But success had not dimmed his concern for the gentle beings who had saved his life. Marcus had submitted detailed reports about the Zilani to every relevant government agency, from the Colonial Administration to the Department of Interstellar Affairs. He had spoken at conferences, written papers, and even appeared before congressional committees, always emphasizing the same message. Humanity had encountered something truly special in the Zilani, and they deserved protection from the forces that threatened them. The response from Earth's leadership had been predictably cautious. The Zilani were located far from established human shipping lanes, in a region where Earth had no strategic interests. The colonial administration was already struggling to maintain security for established human colonies, and the idea of extending protection to alien worlds seemed both impractical and potentially dangerous. Most officials listened politely to Marcus's presentations, thanked him for his service, and promptly filed his recommendations under future consideration. Marcus had tried to maintain contact with the Zilani, but the vast distances involved made communication difficult and expensive. The few messages he had managed to send had received brief but warm responses from Elder Thyra, assuring him that the Zilani people remembered his kindness and held him in high regard. She had mentioned that the Korthak Empire continued to make demands, but the Zalani were managing to maintain their independence through negotiation and the payment of tribute. The situation changed dramatically on a cold morning in November when Marcus received an emergency call at his office in the Luna City Engineering Complex. The caller was Dr. Jennifer Walsh, director of the Deep Space Communications Array, and her voice carried an urgency that made Marcus's blood run cold. "Marcus, we've received a transmission on the emergency frequency you registered for the Zalani," she said without preamble. "It's badly corrupted, but our computers confirm the source. You need to get here immediately." Marcus dropped everything and caught the first transport to the communications facility. The journey from Luna City to the Deep Space Array normally took an hour, but Marcus spent every minute of the trip imagining the worst. The Zalani had never used the emergency frequency before, and the fact that they were doing so now could only mean that the crisis Marcus had feared for 3 years had finally arrived. The communications center was a hive of activity when Marcus arrived. Technicians worked frantically to clean up the transmission, using every available computer to filter out the interference and static that plagued long-distance quantum communications. Dr. Walsh met him at the entrance, her expression grave. "We've been working on it for 6 hours, she said as she led him through the facility. "The signal is coming from beyond the edge of mapped space, which matches the coordinates you provided for Zalani Prime. But it's not just distance causing the interference. There's something else. Massive energy signatures that are scrambling the quantum coherence." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Energy signatures?" "The kind you see during large-scale military operations," Dr. Walsh replied grimly. "Fleet movements, weapon discharges, planetary bombardments. Marcus, I think your friends are under attack." The main communication chamber was filled with the soft hum of quantum processors working at maximum capacity. On the central display, waveforms danced and shifted as the computers attempted to extract meaning from the cosmic static. Marcus watched in growing horror as fragments of the message began to emerge from the noise. Elder Thyra's mental voice, normally so calm and serene, was strained with exhaustion and despair. The transmission was fragmentary, with long gaps where the signal had been completely lost, but the essential message was clear enough. "Marcus Rivera, friend of the Zalani, if you remember the debt between our peoples, desperately need your aid. Korthak Empire has come, cities burning, people dying. Peaceful negotiations have failed. They demand total submission, will not compromise. Time is running out. If humanity remembers kindness, please help us. We are dying." The silence that followed in the communication center was deafening. Marcus stood frozen, his mind reeling from the implications of what he had just heard. The gentle beings who had saved his life, who had shown him the true meaning of civilization, were facing extinction. The Korthak Empire had finally tired of negotiations and tribute, and they were systematically destroying everything the Zalani had built over millennia. "Can we respond?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Walsh shook her head. "The interference is too severe. Even if we could get a message through, it would take weeks to reach them. And by then..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Marcus felt a rage building inside him that he had never experienced before. The Zalani had asked for nothing when they saved his life. They had nursed him back to health, shown him wonders beyond imagination, and sent him safely home to his people. They had exemplified everything that was good about intelligent life in the universe, and now they were being destroyed by brutal conquerors, while the galaxy stood by and watched. "I need to speak to the Colonial Council," Marcus said, his voice carrying a steel that surprised even himself. "Today, emergency session." Dr. Walsh raised an eyebrow. "Marcus, you're a civilian engineer. You can't just demand an emergency session of the Colonial Council." "Watch me," Marcus replied, already reaching for his communicator. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Marcus used every contact he had made during his 3 years of advocacy for the Zalani, calling in favors and applying pressure wherever he could. He contacted Senator Maria Santos, who had shown interest in his previous presentations about interstellar diplomacy. He reached out to Admiral James Harrison, who had been impressed by Marcus's emergency protocols and owed him a favor from a previous consultation. He even called his old academy friend, Dr. Elizabeth Chen, who now served as an advisor to the colonial administration. By the time Marcus stood before the Colonial Council the following evening, he had assembled a coalition of supporters that even he found surprising. The council chamber was packed with representatives from across human space, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. Marcus had been given 30 minutes to make his case, and he knew that the fate of an entire civilization might hang in the balance. 3 years ago, I crashed on an unknown world, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I was dying, alone, and hopeless. The beings who found me could have ignored my plight. They could have let me die and stripped my ship for salvage. Instead, they saved my life, healed my wounds, and asked for nothing in return. He activated the holographic display, showing images he had captured during his time on Zelani Prime. The council members watched in fascination as the beauty of Zelani civilization unfolded before them. The living cities, the crystal forests, the gentle beings who had achieved something that most species only dreamed of. The Zelani represent the highest ideals of intelligent life, Marcus continued. They have created a society based on wisdom, compassion, and the nurturing of life in all its forms. They have knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. They have shown us that it is possible to live in harmony with our environment and each other. The images shifted to show the Korthak Empire, based on intelligence reports from other species. The brutal conquerors, the devastated worlds, the systematic destruction of everything that opposed their expansion. The Korthak Empire has decided that the Zelani must submit or die, Marcus said, his voice growing stronger with each word. They are facing extinction not because they are weak, but because they refuse to abandon their principles. They would rather die than become conquerors themselves. Senator Santos leaned forward. Marcus, we all sympathize with your feelings, but what exactly are you asking us to do? The Zelani are located far from our territory, in a region where we have no strategic interests. Engaging the Korthak Empire could put human colonies at risk. Marcus had anticipated this objection. Senator, I'm not asking for a massive military commitment. I'm asking for a limited intervention force, just enough to help the Zelani defend themselves. Our intelligence suggests that the Korthak rely on intimidation and overwhelming force. They're not used to facing opponents who fight back effectively. Admiral Harrison, who had been studying the tactical assessments, spoke up. The boy has a point. Our analysis suggests that the Korthak are militarily sophisticated but lack experience with unconventional warfare. They've been successful because they've faced species that either submit immediately or try to match their conventional strength. But humans don't fight fair. The debate that followed was intense and sometimes heated. Council members argued about resource allocation, strategic priorities, and the risks of intervention. Some questioned whether humanity had any business interfering in alien conflicts. Others worried about the precedent that would be set if Earth began extending protection to every species that asked for help. Throughout it all, Marcus remained focused on the central issue. The Zelani had saved his life, and by extension, they had saved all the lives that his improved safety protocols had protected over the past 3 years. They had shown humanity what it meant to live according to higher principles, and now they were facing destruction for refusing to abandon those principles. This isn't just about repaying a debt, Marcus said during his final appeal. This is about who we are as a species. Are we the kind of people who abandon our friends when they need help? Are we so focused on our own interests that we'll watch a civilization die rather than take a risk to save them? He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. The Zelani saved one human life without thought of reward or recognition. They're not asking us to conquer the galaxy for them. They're asking us to help them survive. If we turn our backs on them now, what does that say about us? What does that say about the kind of civilization we're building among the stars? The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Marcus had hoped, but decisive enough to authorize action. By a margin of 63 to 47, The Colonial Council voted to dispatch a limited intervention force to assist the Zalani in their defense against the Korthak Empire. The fleet would be small but well-equipped, composed of volunteers from across human space who believed in the mission. Admiral Sarah Chen, Dr. Elizabeth Chen's younger sister, was chosen to command the expedition. She was known for her tactical brilliance and her ability to achieve victory against superior odds. When Marcus asked to accompany the fleet as a civilian advisor, she agreed without hesitation. "You know these people better than anyone," she said during their first planning session. "And they trust you. That could make all the difference in coordinating our efforts with their defenses." The preparation phase took 2 months, during which time Marcus received one more transmission from Zalani Prime. The message was even more corrupted than the first, but Elder Thyra's words came through clearly enough to break his heart. "Marcus, our hope, cities falling, crystal forests burning, so many lost. But we remember kindness, and we believe someone will remember us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Marcus staring at the silent display. Dr. Walsh placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "The fleet launches tomorrow," she said softly. "You'll get there in time." Marcus nodded, though privately he wondered if time hadn't already run out. The Zalani had shown him what it meant to live according to higher principles, and now humanity would show the galaxy what it meant to honor one's debts. Whether they would arrive in time to save the civilization that had saved him remained to be seen. As the human fleet prepared to depart for Zalani Prime, Marcus stood in the observation deck of the flagship, watching Earth recede in the distance. The planet that had given birth to humanity looked small and fragile against the vast backdrop of space, but Marcus knew that it carried within it something precious and rare. The memory of kindness received, and the determination to repay it, no matter the cost. The journey to Zalani Prime would take 3 weeks at maximum speed. Marcus could only hope that the gentle beings who had saved his life would survive long enough to see that their kindness had not been forgotten, and that humanity was coming to honor the debt that could never truly be repaid. The Shield of Earth. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zalani system to a sight that filled Marcus Rivera with both horror and determination. Zalani Prime hung in space like a wounded jewel, its once pristine surface scarred by bombardment craters and the angry red glow of burning cities. The planet's orbital space was dominated by the massive forms of Korthak warships, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had been systematically destroying everything the Zalani had built over millennia. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, her expression grim as she studied the tactical displays. The Korthak fleet was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the human intervention force. Their ships were angular and brutal, designed for intimidation as much as destruction. But Chen had not risen to her position by being intimidated by superior numbers. "Status report," she ordered, her voice carrying the calm authority that had made her one of Earth's most respected commanders. 47 Korthak vessels in orbital formation around Zalani Prime, reported Commander Lisa Torres, Chen's tactical officer. "They're maintaining a siege perimeter, systematically bombarding population centers. Long-range sensors detect 17 human ships in our fleet, all volunteers from across the colonies." Marcus stood near the command station, watching the displays with growing anguish. Each red dot on the tactical screen represented a Korthak ship capable of destroying cities, and there were so many of them. He had convinced humanity to come to the Zalani's aid, but now he wondered if he had led them all to their deaths. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Korthak fleet. It's coming in on standard diplomatic frequencies." "Let's hear it," Chen ordered. The voice that emerged from the speakers was harsh and mechanical, processed through translation software that stripped away any trace of emotion. "Unknown vessels, you are interfering in Korthak Imperial expansion. Identify yourselves and withdraw immediately, or you will be destroyed." Chen looked at Marcus, who nodded grimly. "Admiral, I need to try to reach the Zalani. If any of them are still alive down there, we need to coordinate with their defenses." "Do it," Chen replied. And patch me through to the Korthak commander. It's time they learned what happens when they threaten Earth's friends. As the communications team worked to establish contact with the planet's surface, Marcus felt his heart racing. 3 years had passed since he had spoken with Elder Thyra, and the bombardment had been going on for weeks. The possibility that the gentle beings who had saved his life were already dead was too terrible to contemplate. The first response came from the Korthak fleet commander, a being whose image on the screen was as brutal as his ship's. Commander Vex was a massive creature with armor-plated skin and eyes that glowed with cruel intelligence. When he spoke, his voice carried the arrogance of a conqueror who had never known defeat. "I am Commander Vex of the Korthak 4th Conquest Fleet," he said, his mechanical translator rendering his words with menacing precision. "You are humans, are you not? I have heard of your species, young and weak, barely evolved beyond your primitive homeworld. You have no business in this system." Chen's expression didn't change, but Marcus could see the steel in her eyes. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Colonial Defense Force. The Zalani are under Earth's protection. Withdraw your forces immediately." Vex's laugh was like the sound of grinding metal. "Earth's protection? You amuse me, human. This system is now property of the Korthak Empire. The Zalani will submit or be eliminated, and if you attempt to interfere, you will share their fate." "We'll see about that," Chen replied, cutting the transmission. At that moment, a new voice cut through the static on the emergency frequency Marcus had been monitoring. It was weak and distorted, but unmistakably Elder Thyra's mental voice reaching across the void. "Marcus, is that truly you? We had given up hope." "Elder Thyra," Marcus called out, his voice thick with emotion. "We're here. Earth remembers its debts. We've come to help." The relief in Elder Thyra's mental voice was palpable. "The Korthak have been systematic in their destruction. Most of our cities are in ruins, and our people are scattered in the crystal caves beneath the surface. But we are alive, Marcus. We are alive because we believed that someone would remember us." "What's your defensive situation?" Chen asked, taking over the communication. "We have managed to preserve some of our crystal arrays," Elder Thyra replied. "The Korthak cannot penetrate the deep caves, and our connection to the planetary consciousness remains strong. But we are no match for their weapons. We have been trying to shield our people, but our defenses are failing." Marcus leaned forward, an idea forming in his mind. "Elder Thyra, during my recovery, I saw how your crystals respond to consciousness and intent. What if we could link human technology with your crystal networks? Our weapon systems with your planetary defenses?" There was a pause before Elder Thyra responded, and Marcus could sense the sudden excitement in her mental voice. "The Crystal Singers have theorized about such a connection, but we have never encountered technology compatible with our methods. If it could work, it could change everything," Chen finished. "Commander Torres, prepare the fleet for defensive formation. We're going to buy time for Marcus to work his magic." The battle that followed would be remembered as one of the most audacious military actions in human history. The Korthak fleet, confident in their overwhelming superiority, moved to crush the human intervention force with the same brutal efficiency they had shown against countless other species. But Admiral Chen had not come to fight a conventional battle. The human ships scattered as the Korthak opened fire, their formation dissolving into what appeared to be chaotic retreat. But the chaos was carefully orchestrated. Each human vessel followed a precise pattern, drawing the Korthak ships away from their orbital positions and into the outer system, where their superior numbers would be less of an advantage. Meanwhile, Marcus worked frantically with the Zalani to establish the connection he had proposed. Using a shuttlecraft equipped with quantum communicators, he descended through the planet's atmosphere to the crystal caves where the survivors had taken refuge. The journey was harrowing, with Korthak fighters pursuing him through the scarred landscape, but the shuttle's advanced stealth systems allowed him to reach the surface. The crystal caves were a wonder that took Marcus's breath away. Vast chambers filled with formations that pulsed with their own inner light stretched as far as the eye could see. Thousands of Zalani had taken shelter here, their luminous forms moving through the crystalline landscape like living stars. Despite the devastation above, they maintained their dignity and grace, tending to the wounded and protecting their most sacred knowledge. Kira met Marcus at the entrance to the main chamber, her skin dimmed with exhaustion but her eyes bright with hope. "Marcus Rivera," she said, her mental voice carrying warmth despite the circumstances. "We knew you would come. The crystals sang of your approach days ago." Elder Thyra emerged from the depths of the cave, supported by two younger Zilani, but still radiating the wisdom and strength that had made her a leader among her people. "The connection you propose is dangerous," she said without preamble. "Our crystal networks are living entities, consciousness given form. To link them with your mechanical systems could destroy both." "But if it works?" Marcus asked urgently. Above them, he could hear the distant thunder of orbital bombardment as the Korthak continued their systematic destruction. "If it works," Elder Thyra replied, "we could create something unprecedented. A fusion of organic and mechanical technology that amplifies the strengths of both. Your weapons would gain precision and power beyond their design parameters, while our defenses would be strengthened by your tactical systems." The process took hours of delicate work. Marcus connected his portable quantum computer to the primary crystal formation, while Kira and the other crystal singers established mental links with the planetary network. The first attempts were failures, with the incompatible systems rejecting each other violently. But gradually, through trial and error, they found a harmony that allowed the technologies to merge. The moment of connection was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. He felt his consciousness expand beyond his physical body, touching the vast network of crystal formations that spanned the planet. He could sense every Zilani refugee in the caves, every damaged building on the surface, every ship in orbit. The planet itself seemed to breathe around him, its life force flowing through the crystal networks like blood through veins. And through his quantum communicator, he felt the human fleet above, their weapons systems suddenly linked to the planetary defense grid. Admiral Chen's voice came through the connection, filled with amazement. "Marcus, what have you done? Our targeting systems just became 10 times more accurate, and our weapons are drawing power from some kind of planetary source." "We've created something new," Marcus replied, his voice carrying both to the fleet above and the Zilani around him. "Human determination linked with Zilani wisdom. Let's show the Korthak what happens when they threaten our friends." The tide of battle turned in moments. The human ships, now enhanced by Zilani crystal technology, moved with a precision that defied their original design parameters. Their weapons, drawing power from the planet's own life force, struck with devastating accuracy. The Korthak, who had been toying with what they saw as inferior opponents, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that fought with capabilities beyond their understanding. Commander Vex's voice crackled across the communication channels, filled with rage and disbelief. "What trickery is this? Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields." "They're not primitive anymore," Chen replied coldly. "And they're not just our weapons. You're fighting the combined will of two species who believe in protecting the innocent." The Korthak fought back with increasing desperation, but their conventional tactics were useless against the hybrid technology that Marcus and the Zilani had created. Human ships moved through space with the fluid grace of living beings, while crystal formations on the planet's surface launched beams of concentrated energy that could punch through the heaviest armor. But the true turning point came when the Zilani themselves joined the battle. The Crystal Singers, led by Elder Thyra, reached out through their planetary network to touch the minds of every Korthak soldier in the fleet. They did not attack with violence, for that was against their nature. Instead, they showed them something the Korthak had never experienced: the true meaning of peace, harmony, and the interconnectedness of all life. The effect was devastating to beings who had known only conquest and destruction. Korthak soldiers began laying down their weapons, overwhelmed by visions of what life could be like without constant warfare. Their ship's coordination broke down as crews questioned orders they had never thought to doubt before. Commander Vex, realizing that his fleet was disintegrating around him, made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. His flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with planet-killing weapons, broke away from the failing formation and aimed directly for the crystal caves where the Zilani were sheltering. "If I cannot have this world," he broadcast on all frequencies, "then no one shall have it." The dreadnought's main weapon began charging, building energy for a blast that would crack the planet's crust and eliminate the Zilani forever. But Marcus, still linked to the planetary network, felt the weapon's buildup through the crystal formation's senses. "Admiral, he's going to fire on the caves," Marcus called out urgently. "All ships, emergency intercept," Chen ordered, but even as she spoke, she knew they were too far away to stop the dreadnought in time. It was Elder Thyra who provided the solution. "Marcus," her mental voice was calm despite the approaching doom. "The crystals can do more than enhance your weapons. They can become weapons themselves, but it requires a consciousness to guide them, someone who understands both technologies." Marcus understood immediately. Through his link with the planetary network, he could direct the crystals to generate a defensive beam powerful enough to stop the dreadnought. But the energy required would be enormous, and there was no way to know if a human mind could survive channeling that much power through the Zilani system. "Do it," Marcus said without hesitation. "If this is the price of protecting your people, I'll pay it gladly." The moment Marcus opened his mind fully to the crystal network, every formation on the planet began to glow with brilliant light. Energy flowed through him like a river of stars, threatening to tear his consciousness apart. But somehow, supported by the mental strength of thousands of Zilani and his own human determination, he held on long enough to aim the combined power of an entire world at the Korthak dreadnought. The beam that lanced up from Zilani Prime was like nothing ever seen in galactic warfare. It was not merely a weapon, but an expression of will itself, the combined determination of two species to protect what they held dear. It struck the Korthak dreadnought just as its main weapon finished charging, and the resulting explosion lit up the entire system. When the light faded, Commander Vex and his flagship were gone, reduced to cosmic dust. The remaining Korthak vessels, their will to fight shattered by what they had witnessed, began to flee the system. But Admiral Chen was not about to let them escape to threaten other worlds. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth to all Korthak vessels," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You came here to destroy a peaceful civilization. You will leave with a message for your empire. Zilani Prime is now under the protection of Earth. Any future aggression against this world or its people will be met with the full force of human military might, enhanced by Zilani wisdom. Consider this your only warning." The surviving Korthak ships jumped to hyperspace without responding, carrying with them the news that would reshape the balance of power in this region of the galaxy. The Korthak Empire had met its match in the unlikely alliance between human determination and Zilani compassion. In the crystal caves below, Marcus slowly regained consciousness to find himself surrounded by worried faces. The effort of channeling the planetary weapon had nearly killed him, but the Zilani healers had worked tirelessly to stabilize his condition. Elder Thyra knelt beside him, her luminous skin pulsing with patterns of relief and gratitude. "You risked everything to save us," she said, her mental voice filled with emotion. "We can never repay such a debt." Marcus smiled weakly. "You already did, 3 years ago. This just makes us even." The aftermath of the battle saw the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. Earth formally established Zilani Prime as a protected world, stationing a permanent defense force in the system. In return, the Zilani shared their crystal technology and wisdom with humanity, leading to advances in science and philosophy that would benefit both species for generations to come. The hybrid technology that Marcus and the Zilani had created during the battle became the foundation for a new type of space vessel, one that combined human engineering with Zilani bioconsciousness. These ships would go on to explore regions of space that had been inaccessible to purely mechanical technology, opening up new frontiers for both species. But perhaps most importantly, the alliance between Earth and Zilani Prime served as an example to the galaxy of what could be accomplished when different species work together in mutual respect and friendship. Other worlds, inspired by what they had witnessed, began reaching out to form their own alliances based on cooperation rather than conquest. Marcus returned to Earth as a hero, but he never forgot the lessons he had learned among the Zilani. He became humanity's first ambassador to Zilani Prime, spending half of each year on the Crystal World and half on Earth, serving as a bridge between the two civilizations. Years later, when asked about the secret to the successful alliance, Marcus would always give the same answer. It started with kindness. The Zilani saved one human life without thought of reward, and that single act of compassion changed the galaxy. Never underestimate the power of doing the right thing, even for a stranger. The gentle beings of Zilani Prime had shown humanity what it meant to live according to higher principles. In return, humanity had shown them that kindness, once given, could grow into something powerful enough to protect entire worlds. Together, they had created something new among the stars, a partnership based not on conquest or exploitation, but on mutual respect, shared wisdom, and the unshakable belief that all consciousness was precious and worth protecting. The debt had been repaid, but the friendship that grew from it would last for millennia, a testament to the power of compassion in a galaxy too often ruled by conflict and fear.